Well, I was born in a city called Fullerton, California in 1965. I'm the youngest of 8. There were very few childhood pictures of me because by the time I was born, I mean, I think mom and dad probably were all pictured out. And it kind of always had a little feeling growing up like I had to fight a little harder to get noticed, even though I was the baby of the family. I was about 7 years old when I started doing karate and wrestling, and I was too young to play football. And once I turned 8 and was able to play football, I knew what I wanted to be in life. But by the time I got to junior high school, watching my brothers play high school football under the lights, that dream started to become much more of a reality for me. I wanted to play in big time. I wanted to go to the Super Bowl. I wanted to break records, and I was just a diehard football fanatic. And it just gave me something that kept me out of the street, and it also gave me ambition to be somebody. I was only a small guy. I was 5'5" and 160 pounds, wrestling guys older than me, supplementing my football. By the time I got to be a sophomore, they asked me to play varsity football. And that was really where my breakthrough moment was, because in the off season of playing football, I started lifting weights with the bigger guys, the juniors and the seniors, because I knew I was going to be getting hit by bigger players. And I needed to be able to not only hit them back, but also absorb the punishment. And I walked into a gym, and about 2 months in the gym in the off season, my sophomore year, I met a bodybuilder named Shawn. This is 1982, and he asked me what contest I was training for. My only exposure to bodybuilding was I knew Conan the Barbarian was a bodybuilder and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he didn't resemble anything that I wanted to be like. He's 6'2", he's Austrian, he's a white guy, and here I am, small, and it kind of looked like something unworldly, cartoon character. And John Brown was the black version of Arnold. He was 6'2", 260 pounds, veins everywhere, and kind of intimidating. The irony of that was I was training with a guy that worked out with John off and on, and at the time John was 2-time Mr. Universe and going for his 3rd Mr. World Championship over in Europe. And we all 3 started training. 5 months later, I don't know how, I wound up on a bodybuilding stage. I was 17 years old. I got 2nd place in a teenage contest, and I walked away with the best poser. And John Brown was known for his posing. So he taught me the art of posing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was confident by the time I hit the stage because I was being taught by someone who was like an ice skater on the posing DS. I mean, he was flawless. And I think I absorbed a lot of that. The following week came, I competed in another teenage contest, the California Gold Cup in 1983. I walked off with the middleweight title, the overall title, most muscular, and best poser. And the light went off in my head like I got 6 big trophies in 2 weeks' time. And I played the whole year in hopes of getting one playing football. It was a groundbreaking moment for me when I won that overall teenage contest because I was competing against guys 18 and 19, and here I was 17 years old. And I started to believe that maybe John was right. I could do something. I could go somewhere. I could be someone. The real breakthrough came a year later. I went into the Mr. Los Angeles Championships in 1984, and I thought there was going to be a teenage division, and there wasn't. And I competed in the show. I got 3rd place. And I was pretty dejected, but there was another show 2 weeks later in the AAU division, which I would go on to win the short class and the overall. But it was pivotal for me because about 2 months after, I got a letter in the mail from the 1982 Mr. Olympia, Chris Dickerson. And I knew Chris, who he was, because I had pictures, like every bodybuilder, of him on my wall. But looking in magazines, you can't tell how big these guys are. I called him up after I read the letter and asked him if I could come to Gold's Gym Venice and train with him. And I told everybody I knew, and my mom and everyone just didn't understand it. But for me, it was like meeting the President of the United States. This was the premier bodybuilder in the world only 1 year prior, and he was telling me that I reminded him of a younger version of him. It's a long drive to Venice Beach, 45 minutes, but here I was, barely 18 years old, 17 and a half, driving down there, and Chris Dickerson comes walking out, 44 years young, short like I was, and I thought I was waiting for a 7-foot, 400-pound monster to come walking out. And in talking with him and having the chance to train back in calves, I mean, I can remember it like it's yesterday. It was one of those firsts that you never forget. Your first kiss and your first win and your first. This was a moment where when Chris walked out of the Gold's Gym to meet me, I was like, wow. But more importantly, training with him, it was very impressionable because he was not only a student of the game, but he was a perfect gentleman. I mean, he embodied what Mr. Olympia was to me. The first ever black Mr. America champion, the oldest Mr. Olympia at 42 years old. I thought, I have a long time in this game because if he can do it, I can do it. And that was my first real belief that I could actually be one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And I was still in high school.